Marsha Alexander. I've been in Dubai for the last 15 years. I was with GEM's Modern Academy first as head of the primary, and then I moved on from there to our own English High School in Dubai, and I've been with GEM since 2001. And today I'm going to do a little workshop with you on self-evaluation, opening the inner eye to self-evaluation. Let's start by thinking, when we talk about self-evaluation, immediately your context, which you think of, is your school, because that's why you're here. But I want to begin giving you an overarching view, the bigger picture. There's a new economic landscape, and there are knowledge-intensive service economies. If we start looking at, there's a widening divide between poverty and affluence. Populations are on the move. There are transformative technologies and user-created content, changing social connections and values, and different configurations of home life. So how does this matter to me in terms of self-evaluation? You'll be thinking, why is she talking about this? But unless you're aware of the bigger picture, what are you evaluating against? What is the context in which your evaluations occur? We know very well that with PhDs focused on science and maths, that's a national agenda. There is a focus on technology integration because children and teachers are teaching and learning in ways that they've never done before. So if you begin with evaluation, you have to understand in which context you are evaluating. Our school may be a good school in some other context. If you compare it to some other country, you might find the school is doing a lot of things. But within the context, within the bigger vision, we have to now evaluate ourselves, keeping in mind this overarching picture, which very often we fail to do. We look at the classroom context. It's nested within the school, the family and neighborhood, the social and economic context, and the national and cultural context. So the school is sitting right inside the classroom. It's right inside several little dolls, as you would see, like the Russian dolls. It's nested within it. And whatever you do in your classroom impacts what happens in the larger national cultural context, and whatever happens in the national context affects what happens within your classroom. So self-evaluation is not independent of what do I think is good for my children. It has to be in relationship with some reference point where we're saying it's not up to the mark or it is falling short of something. Who sets those marks? What are we evaluating ourselves? We all might have a pretty good picture. When I walked into my school, the inspections had just begun, and my entire staff were in denial. We're still an acceptable school. So you might wonder, what are we going to learn from a principal school that's still accepted? I think a lot. Because when you are in a school that is challenged, when you're in a school that is not yet good, you have to work doubly hard. Some of my colleagues tell me, why are you here? Run away, you can go to another school. I don't want to. Because the amount of things I'm learning in order to turn the school around, I've never worked as hard, I've never learned as much as when I am in my present context. And that is exciting. So we're looking at self-evaluation, where people were saying, everything's fine, our school's just fine, we have the rolls are full, kids are learning, parents are happy, we have a huge queue of children waiting to come to our school. We are a good school, and everything else is wrong with whoever's evaluating us. Now we had to look at, they were evaluating themselves in context of what they already knew, what they considered were benchmarks for being good, which is full rolls, happy parents, happy children, satisfied teachers, everybody relaxed, lovely family atmosphere. But the context had changed. KHDA had come in. Benchmarks had been set. Expectations were different. And we were closing our eyes and saying, we're good, looking at what has transpired earlier. And it took a long while for me to open that inner eye. Leadership acts are most likely to occur when attempts are made to understand the circumstance of teachers' work, starting with the practitioners of teaching and developing a language for talking about teaching, assisting teachers to collect evidence about their contradictions, dilemmas, paradoxes that inhere in their work. This amounts to developing an inner eye so as to penetrate accepted assumptions and in the process identify visible ways in which transformation might occur. Long quotation, but very relevant to what we do. We wonder how to go about self-evaluation. There is the eye that sees, and then there is an inner eye which has to open before you can evaluate. You can't evaluate something that you refuse to see. And it's not about seeing what you want to see, it's seeing things as they really are. So how can you as leaders help? I decided to have conversations with all of my staff. I joined the school, I sent for the entire staff one by one, had chats with them, and the amount of information I got as how teachers perceive the school at the grassroots level is very different from what my leaders were telling me. Management team, counselors, they were saying, everything is okay, we've got everything covered, the teachers just need to work harder. But the teachers were telling me something completely different when I went to the school. So I had conversations with the teachers because unless you change the dilemmas and paradoxes that inhere in their work, that interfere with that work they're doing, support them, because self-evaluation has to be bottom-up, growth, and top-down support. The self-evaluation has to come from the teacher saying, I don't know how to do these things, or I can't do these things because of the contradictions, the orders, the expectations, which don't sit well in my work environment. If I can very easily go and say, you do this, this is the action plan, you do this, because this is what the vision of the school is, and there'll be no ownership, there'll be no development, it will be top-down vision and top-down, if at all, God help you, support. But what you need is bottom-up evaluation and top-down support from the leaders, from the organization that is running your school. And nobody can do it better than the teacher, because if the inner eye is opened, then only you will see visible transformation in your school. Till that happens, it's like sometimes we have children who have special needs, their parents come and they say, no, my child is perfectly okay, I don't care, I'm not taking him for an evaluation. And they're adamant, and the teacher can recognize there's something wrong. However, until the parent accepts where they are, you can't begin moving forward. And evaluation is not about something that you write on the paper. It's about states of mind where people accept, okay, here is where we are. We've got to roll up our sleeves and start doing better than we were doing in order to get to what is called good. And so now we talk about data, and we measure what we value rather than value what is easy to measure. Most often, data, okay, it's easy to measure this, so let's have this set of data. Because this data tells us a story, we want to tell everybody that we are good. So we take what's convenient to us and not really measure what are the most important things. I always talk about cleaning a room, a kitchen say. If I have my help coming in and she decides to dust the whole house and do the superficial cleaning, as far as I'm concerned, the kitchen's clean because she's done the regular job that she does. But let's say the sink is very dirty and something else is covered with oil. You might need to focus on particular areas to change those areas where you can say overall there is a greater level of cleanliness. So we might be wasting a lot of effort on things that really don't matter by measuring what we want to measure, what's easy to measure, rather than looking at what is of value. And the data that you derive should stimulate discussion, rethink directions, monitor progress, provide an ongoing image of the school as it changes, progresses, stalls, regroups, and moves forward again. I bring you to these keywords because after PhD came along, everybody believes I'll just get better and better and better. You can't be on an upward trajectory all the time. There are going to be times when you stall. Nothing seems to be happening. And you get angry when you see all those little red arrows now coming down. And you say, I've been working so hard, we did something extra. Those little arrows are annoying. And the little green arrows are like, okay, we're doing things right and going up and you feel good about yourself. You can't have, it is not normal to have progress year on year in every aspect. So somewhere you will find that you have to regroup, you have to rethink directions, you've got to change. If you do the same thing, you're like on a treadmill, you're planning, you're teaching, you're correcting, you're planning, you're teaching, you're correcting, you're doing more and more of the same things and you expect to see different results. So if you're not seeing something different, it's time we looked at and understood and accepted. Then the next year I can't get 18 indicators up and 25 indicators up. I'm not a superwoman. You're not superman. You have to understand it's normal in the normal course of life. You will find the upward trajectory will plateau. It will stall for a while and it's challenging you. Think, are we doing enough in the right direction? So this data is very important, no doubt, but measure what is of value. You look in the mirror and what matters most is how you see yourself, how your teachers and children see themselves. Are you seeing yourself as poor self-esteem, fat old ugly woman? Or are the children thinking, who is so smart, and the teachers thinking, I'm a lion, I'm not a pussycat. The ability to evaluate things as they really are is important in self-evaluation. So there's a culture of inquiry. There's an urgent need to take back the definition of good teaching and good schools from those who have misappropriated them. It's through a culture of inquiry and self-evaluation embedded in the daily class routine that schools gain a strength of conviction to expose what constrains authentic learning with an enhanced sense of agency, able to show how things can be different. It's not about anywhere else. Self-evaluation must begin in your classrooms. Begin with the teacher. Because that is where you're inspected, isn't it? The inspectors come and sit in the class and you can show data and you say, I got these results in the board examinations. I got these results when I did the standardized test. But they would say, I'm not seeing progress. I'm not seeing attainment. So the self-evaluation must emanate from within the classroom where every teacher knows how to better her practice. So let's say you have a whole lot of kindergarten children down in the carpet and the teacher is standing up, okay? I'm walking into the room and she's saying, yes, what did you say? And they're sitting very orderly, looks like a peaceful class. I can immediately correct that. They're saying, listen, you've got to get down to their level. You've got to sit on the carpet. This is teacher directed. It straight away tells you it's a teacher directed class if the teacher's standing like I am doing and everybody's listening. It's teacher directed. It's led. There's no involvement of the children. So here are things that you can change immediately just by walking around, just by getting into the class and saying, I don't have to write a feedback on a feedback form. I don't have to spend hours sitting across. And now I think the folly is all of my teachers have learned fantastic words like not enough evidence, not visible, no collaboration. There's no authentic learning, and it doesn't tell the teacher anything. You as supervisors, as leaders, are writing the right words, which you also are learning. But you're not giving them feedback by which they can correct themselves. The feedback has to be specific, just like, please sit down on that carpet and be with the children, then it's not a teacher-directed lesson. If children have to go to the tables, give them some kind of numbers or something where they will find their own tables, which will lead to self-direction, not teacher-directed. There's a lot of us who sit in our offices and evaluate. Every leader has to walk the corridors, get inside classes, whether it's a principal, whether it's the headmistress, supervisors. You must be observing lessons. You must be sitting in at lessons. You shouldn't be moralizing using big words which people don't understand and phrase them. The whole idea is to communicate clearly. If you change this in your practice, you will see a result in the work that you're doing, and in turn, we will see an improvement in our schools. Now, some of the things that worry teachers is anxiety over covering lessons, internal competitiveness, targets which are inflexible. The principal says, I want this and it is there. Parental pressures, being misjudged and judged, being over-directed, not being listened to. These were some of the things that I heard when I had conversations with the teachers. They want to be valued professionally, they want to be noticed, trusted, listened to, respected, supported in risk-taking, and have opportunities to learn from their colleagues. So the self-evaluation, what I garnered was, these are all the toxins in my school. They could be different in your schools. But in my schools, at that point of time, they were worried. People had set them targets. They were not being listened to. You have to do it this way because I told you so. And all they were asking was, trust us, respect us, support us in taking risks, and give me an opportunity to learn from my colleagues. Being able to evaluate that, I can tell you one thing. I was an outsider 4 years ago in this particular school. So everything was hitting me in the face, but they were unable to see. Sometimes you need a critical friend, a colleague from another school to tell you what you can no longer see. There's a film over your eyes. And perhaps now, when I am 4 years in this school, I too am beginning to think, oh yes, we're quite good. But I might need somebody from outside to keep reminding me that you're not yet there. There are 6 levels of reflection, but we normally look at only one, the experience, or maybe 2. We record and make explicit that experience. We reflect on the learning experience, but then you have to make a connection, and you have to apply to a new situation and adapt to a new situation. I will give an example. When we went in and we found that technology was not integrated in lessons in my school, I decided to take away textbooks. After a pilot period of 6 months, I took away all textbooks from the school and I started using e-resources. We're a very mid-market, low-income, low-fee-paying school, and it was met with a lot of anger from parents who wanted to have control over the children's textbook learning, to teachers who were not competent with technology, who didn't want to be exposed if they would go down that path. They all realized, yes, we can have this technology, but we can't replace the textbook. But the connection had to be made. I always tell people, there's nothing wrong with a textbook. It's a resource. And from cover to cover, it has only finite information. Today's children have access to the net and infinite information. They should be able to explore. When I was teaching from a textbook 30 years ago, I found I had a set of questions which the children answered, regardless if they were higher order, lower order, knowledge, application, whatever. And the parents sent children for tuitions and said, oh, we know the answers to these 6 questions. My child is going to get 100 marks when he finishes the test. But now, they don't have control over the learning because the child could be learning through projects, could be learning through research. The teachers had to adapt to a new situation. It's taken me all of 4 years to hold course, to convince, to change. So what is our success story? Our success story is change management. We have effectively changed from a textbook-oriented school to a textbook-free school. I still respect the textbook as a resource, and I consider technology also only as a resource. But integrating technology effectively into classrooms so children use technology when they need it, it's not prescribed to them by teachers, is the way we're looking at going forward. So how do teachers learn? The kinds of change that really matter in education are not structural, but those that build teacher capacity and professional culture. I found there was no time. Teachers refused to stay back after school. They didn't want to do more work. They said, you're paying us not enough to stay back after school and put in extra hours. So I did what was, I think, the most effective thing called common planning time. You can try it. I don't know how effective it works. We put 2 lessons back to back where they have extracurricular, like music and library. Okay? So I got 80 minutes of time for my core subject teachers to meet once a week in the class and discuss the work, look at teacher work, and it's been going on for 4 years. And they value that time as the most precious time for learning. They learn from each other. They say, why did you give her 10? Why did you give 7? I disagree. Can I see her sample work? And they don't have to stay back after school. They're happy because this happens during the normal course of their... It took me a little while to arrange the timetable in such a way that every grade level had 80 minutes and a 10-minute break, 90 minutes, 1.5 hours every week built into their timetable to plan, to evaluate learning that's going on. So that's something that we really benefited from. I'm sure all our schools do most of this. Another thing we did was early dispersal. My parents were very angry when I said, once a month, children are going to go home at 12 o'clock because I need to train my teachers from 12 to 4. They said, we're paying you money. I said, yes, you're paying us money, but it's my job to make sure that your teachers are trained to deliver the curriculum. Don't you think that's important? And suddenly they began to understand, yes, they are using this time to enhance the skills of our teachers. So once a month, on the 3rd Tuesdays in our school, all children leave the school at 12 o'clock, and from 12 to 4, we have intensive PD, which improves their skills. 2 other things I'll draw your attention to. One was learning walks. Do you do that in your school? You take a walk around, sometimes with your supervisor, sometimes with the class teacher, and you're able to pick up so many things as you walk down the corridor. As a principal, I look at administrative stuff like air conditioners, to doors, to safety, as well as what learning practice is occurring within the classroom. A learning wall, on the other hand, is whatever children learn about a topic, they display. So we took them to Russell Court to see the flamingos, and they came back and they wrote in Arabic, they wrote in English, and they put up all their learning on a wall. And it's not prescribed, it's what they want to learn, and there's a lot of learning that's evident when you don't ask children to write an essay. Children who wouldn't write 3 sentences in Arabic were writing an entire page. It may be full of mistakes, it may be full of errors, but they've overcome the fear of having to communicate in Arabic. So these practices must be changed in order to begin self-evaluation. What is the purpose of self-evaluation? Why are we doing this? It's not a single purpose, but a cluster of cognate purposes brought together to provide one overarching visionary purpose: school improvement. Identify what we need to fix, improve student outcomes, improve teacher competencies, and improve lesson planning. If we look at these 4, you need to know what you need to fix. Sometimes administrators walk in and fix things that don't need fixing. They're running perfectly well. Let's make a new lesson observation. Let's make a new reporting form. Let's make a new notebook evaluation form. The old one was working perfectly well. Fix only what we need to fix. Always keeping in mind student outcomes should improve, teacher competencies must improve, and lessons should be planned as effectively as possible. Who is this for? All stakeholders of the schools: parents, teachers, students. So there's internal focus informing planning and practice and putting the improvement of teaching and learning at its core. DSIB is a subsidiary, and the school is shaped by improvement more than accountability. I want to explain that. Half of the time we're doing stuff now because DSIB is coming, inspectors are coming, inspections there, KHDA, DSIB, okay? But that's not why you should be improving school. You should be improving school because you want better learning outcomes for your children. We are accountable. They're a subsidiary. The school is shaped by improvement. Improvement first and then accountability to others. Improvement of what children learn, improvement of skills in teachers. So if as a principal I walk in and say, oh God, if I don't do this, then DSIB will fail me. If I don't do this, I'm not going to get a good in curriculum design. If I don't do this, I don't look at it that way. We have to look at what is better for our children. Can we see tangible results on account of having introduced the changes? And we must make sure that it answers the needs of parents, of students, and teachers. They are your stakeholders. You won't have a school if you didn't have children. And you won't have children there unless the parents trusted their children with you. You don't even have a job. I don't have a job. But once they're given to you, you must make sure the people who transact your curriculum, the teachers, are given the support. So it's not about, DSIB should just be a checkpoint who comes in and says, well done, you're doing well, or you need to improve somewhere here or there. They're a checkpoint. It's a subsidiary. It's not the main thing. So we shouldn't let that fear or that inspection time hijack everything else that happens the whole school year. I know, I'm speaking for myself, I can see people nodding, and I know it happens in all schools. I've been in 4 or 5 schools in Dubai in the last 15 years, and I've been at various positions. When I was in India for the last 15 years, nobody bothered because we didn't have inspections. Everybody taught. Everybody had such a good self-esteem that I'm the greatest teacher under the sun. But when I landed here, and I began, and I kept getting schools that were either unacceptable or acceptable. Initially, I was also a bit like, I wish, why is this school acceptable? But the amount I have learned in the last 8 years with DSIB being there, the challenges that I have faced, there's more hunger and there is more need and drive to prove yourself when there's adversity, when there's difficulty. You don't challenge yourself as much if you were in an outstanding school, because you need to move to the next level. There's an ingrained need that is driving you. When you reach the outstanding level, there is a very hard job of staying at the top. So every level has its own demands, but as an administrator and as a teacher and as a principal, I have been stretched because I have been placed in schools which I have to turn around. And don't be disheartened wherever your school is poised. If you're in a tough school, you should consider yourself lucky. It's like if you teach clever children, you're really not a part of their, the contributions that you make is less than you would be giving a special needs child. If a special needs child makes a lot of progress in your lesson, you can count yourself as having contributed to that child. What is the best structure? When we began, it was uncoordinated with self-evaluation occurring in random pockets to the schools, classrooms, and departments. In order to grow and infuse the whole school policy, we adopted the DSIB framework because we were just walking around, self-evaluation was happening, some people were doing it, some were doing it effectively, nobody knew what to reference it against. Is DSIB the best framework? I don't know. You can create stiffer, harder, tougher, demanding frameworks for yourself and cross-reference it with DSIB. We all want the same thing. You can look at even tougher standards and set yourselves even stricter standards. If DSIB says 50% of the students should attain at this level, you can say 75% of the students should attain at this level. Cross-reference it with DSIB and say, oh, that's so easy because our standards are tougher than DSIB. So it doesn't have to be. We use the DSIB framework because we were really wandering around with no sense of direction. Criteria and measures, how did we judge? We looked at data from tests, we looked at teacher, pupil, parents surveys, peer observations, lesson observations, quality of teaching and learning, and the school ethos, which are less easy to measure but can be developed, and engaged critically in the process of thinking these things through and giving ownership to the process. You see, I can easily sit at a meeting and fill the minds of all my staff with ideas. I can tell them, this is where we are, and they quietly nod. If we talk, we never hear anything new. We're just repeating what we know. If we listen, we might learn something new. So as a principal, I choose most often, when my staff come in, so tell me what's happening. Because when I'm listening, because I know what's happening, and if I'm going to tell you, I'm going to fill your ideas with my idea, with your head with my ideas. And therefore, the staff will not take ownership. You need them to take ownership of the process of self-evaluation. So what did we do? We focused on what matters to stakeholders, a process of continuing development rather than an event, a process of bottom-up development with top-down support, and we used lesson observations, scrutiny of work, planning, analysis of performance data, pupil interviews and discussions, monitoring and evaluating on the run. I think the last thing is the most important thing. It's not something you do in self-evaluation, not something you do in September or in May or whenever your inspections are around the corner. If I ask a school and they say, I don't have this document, but I'll get it ready before TSIB, it's not effective because evaluation has to happen on the run. That's most important. So here I would like to show you, I hope this opens up. Okay, the internet's not connected, but I'll send you that observation form. Bhavna, you can transfer it. We track students and teachers in performance every single day because every day adds up to something new. If I do one thing one day and I keep doing over 30 days, usually how do you evaluate? Maybe after 2 weeks, maybe after a month, you have a look after a month, maybe after a term in some cases. But if you check every day, small incremental steps that you take will result in big improvements after 1 month. So my expert IT people put Google Docs and whatever, I get drafts, I can see which teacher's gone for a lesson observation, how many were good, what feedback have they given, what evidence is there. So every day as a principal, I'm in charge of what is happening in the school. I know work is going on every single day. Maybe it is good. This is carried out by the leadership team for the purpose of monitoring and evaluating. Some are linked to performance management. Feedback is given to celebrate strengths and identify weakness. And a common thread running through our school was the ineffective use of technology. It fed into the school improvement plan and the area of development was identified, support given in the form of team teaching, lesson demonstrations and support in planning. Lesson observation is perhaps the most significant tool if it is carried out effectively to change practice in your school. It has to be understood. Sometimes supervisors go to a lesson and say, she'll be angry with me if I tell her her lesson is bad. So I'll tell her, it's okay, because you want to save yourself. You don't give specific feedback. You'd say, you could do this, and you walk away. And so I have a set of information which is incorrect data coming to me. 50 lessons that are good. But in actual practice, maybe only 20 lessons were good. And the people who were looking at them, A, they're frightened to tell their colleagues that the lesson is not good because she'd be grumpy and she'd go around staring daggers at you, so you don't want to tell her the actual truth. Or you haven't bothered to observe, you just put ticks in boxes. Okay, outstanding, okay, good. So that the principal won't ask me questions. I've seen all good lessons. So you must make sure that the lesson observation is carried out effectively, truthfully, in order that the school gets a real picture of where the school is at. What are the tools for the job? We use a variety and range that is simple and accessible. Assessment for learning tools, anecdotal records, learning walks, and learning walls. Here are some children. They're playing with little blocks made of tissue boxes. The girls and boys are playing with boxes. initially the teacher asks them, what do you want to make? And then she sets up a challenge and asks the boys, do you want to beat the girls? Do you want to make a bigger tower? But what I see at the end is children making tunnels and talking about bridges. You know, they're developing vocabulary. And the girls eventually make one tissue box straight, one up, one straight. So when they're asked, what are you doing? The children say, we're making patterns. Okay? So they're extending a very formal learning approach, even when they're playing, into patterns using shoe boxes. And we see them self-correcting. You know, they place the box in one particular way, and when the teacher says, is that okay? The child learns to move it around. So recording these things, anecdotal records or taking little videos, can help you learn a lot about what children are learning through play. We lose it if we don't record it. We need to make sure we document it and derive the learning from what children are doing. I'll share with you now an activity. It's going to come onto your laptops. There are checklists and forms. If you can open them.
Good morning, everyone. I have shared 2 documents with you with your mail ID given. Because we have only 1 laptop on each table, so if anyone of you can open your mail, the mail ID which you have shared with us, I have shared 2 documents with you.
Do we have access to the internet? Are we having computers? Yes? Okay. All right. Yeah, she'll circulate some hard copies. Essentially, why I have sent it to you is that you have this when you go back to your schools, and that you don't miss, you don't get a copy of it sometimes, and you say, I wish I had a copy, and then you have to edit the document, and you wish this table was in a soft copy format, which is easy to edit. So we've sent it to you. She'll pass around some hard copies. Some of the things that we do are checklists for evaluation. We also have one particular form for focus group discussion. Once she circulates it, I'll ask you, I'll tell you what. Bhavna, can I have one? On the first one, you'll find a review of monitoring of pupils' written work. With your own pupils in mind, try and see. It's just a yes/no column, okay? An assessment policy checklist. When you go through the policy, you will look at whether some of the things are happening in your school. Does your policy provide the assessment of skills and non-written work? There's a clear guidance of assessment for learning and assessment of learning. There is a policy on standardized testing. Does your school provide a policy on standardized testing? Put a tick or a cross, which will help you when you go back to look at your assessment policy. Sometimes some schools may not even have a policy. It's necessary to have a written policy on assessment. So evaluate yourself as you're sitting here. There's a checklist for teachers' written plans, and then there is a focus group discussion. I would like you to put down one area and 2 key questions for a focus group discussion. I'll give you an example. The area is curriculum, and I want a key question for curriculum which I'm going to discuss with my team. I want everybody to be able to put down 1 focus area and 2 key questions. I want to see what kind of questions you're going to ask in your focus group discussions. That will elicit good answers. Pick up any area. It might be health and safety, it could be teaching and learning, it could be professional development, and write down 2 questions for me, just 1 area and 2 questions, to let me know what kind of questions do you ask when you sit with your team to take a focus group discussion which you had. Because if you keep these formats, you're actually documenting, you give your discussion a structure. very often principals, supervisors, we go in and we have everyone sitting down and we go on talking, and there's no particular direction in which we are eliciting answers. So if there is a focus group is, I'm concentrating on curriculum, I'm going to ask you some real key questions that will generate a discussion, and then I will document what comes of that discussion. So I want to know what levels of questions you would ask in order to elicit responses. So after everybody writes, some brave person at every table can just share one question. Any area, you can discuss. There are no right answers, there are no right questions, but there are more effective questions and less effective questions. Don't be frightened. I am basically a teacher. Put down it. Put it down, it gives you direction. And the starting point is right to the of force everybody to this question of curriculum. Okay?
We have a form. So you have for example,
The task is to identify any address. So you have to know your levels and you want to generate one, two, three questions and maybe you can do that sub-level one.
Yeah, we have. Yeah. General topic will be about progress and the key question how to track progress in class, in one class, or in one
Are we kind of ready? Anyone ready to share? No. You just have to tell me the questions so that we all learn from each other what kind of questions. So anyone ready to share?
So number one,
You're not ready? If everyone will listen, stand up, please, and say it loudly, maybe.
Yeah, got a loud voice.
Okay.
So we were looking at assessment for learning. So that's just an area that we just looked at. So some of the key questions that we could ask, instead of telling teachers that you're not doing well, we pose critical questions to them so that they can start thinking about how well their assessments are, or how good their assessments are. Some of the questions that we could ask them is, how does your assessment inform your planning?
How does your assessment inform your planning? Would be a question to the team.
To pose to the teachers and the team. So basically, not only your summative assessment, because that might be very good, but how is your formative assessment informing your planning, day-to-day planning?
Okay.
So that's one question that we will bring up the discussion with teachers. So that's what you want to know, what are they doing with the assessment. Thereafter, we go into how do you involve your students in your assessments. So how often do you involve your students in the assessment? Do they develop the success criteria with you?
Just a minute. How often do you involve students in assessments? But aren't you assessing students?
No, here we talk about, are they co-constructing the success criteria?
Okay.
That's very important.
How often do you involve students in co-constructing success criteria? That's very specific. Okay? Well done. Would anybody else like to?
our general topic will be the attainment and progress.
Attainment and progress. Okay?
So the main questions, or the key questions that we are going to focus on, what's the difference between attainment and progress?
What's the difference between attainment and progress?
And how can we track the progress and attainment in our class? And the third main question, it will be how this will affect our lesson plan.
Just a suggestion, attainment and progress are very large areas.
But
okay?
they came in one.
If you can take, like I'm taking one point from what they said, and they say co-constructing criteria is very specific and you get answers. If you give a very broad area, the discussion can go everywhere. Very focused about progress or attainment. Both those areas are huge areas. So if you're talking about how can I improve attainment in special needs children at grade 3 level in mathematics by 10%, what are the strategies? You're being very, very specific, and we know exactly what we're looking at in terms of progress and what measures can teachers do to help. But if you talk about progress as how can we improve progress? It could be in subjects. From subject to subject it might differ. So greater specificity, but the area is absolutely crucial. Absolutely crucial. Would somebody want to share some ideas or any questions? No? Anyone else would like to share a question?
I think for the progress, one thing that we found which was very important for us when we were doing learning work is how do you measure progress within the lesson? Because it's easier to measure progress over time, over a certain period after the end of a unit, but DSIB comes and measures progress within the unit.
How did you do it?
How do teachers do that?
How would you measure progress within a lesson? The simplest thing of measuring progress is if you have learned something new at the end of 35 minutes. That's it, that's progress. If there's something I didn't know at the beginning of the lesson and I know 2 new things at the end of the lesson, I had progress. Now the question remains, is that sufficient progress? You know, you might want more progress. So you would say 2 words is not good, I need 5 words to be done. Okay? But anything, children shouldn't go away having learned nothing new. If you come into a lesson and you have nothing new to take away, then there has been no progress in the session. I'm hoping that when you go away, at least one thing I have said stays with you, one thing I have asked you to do, you go and try in your schools. Otherwise, this entire session, there has been no progress.
How I will make sure that everyone.
Everyone cannot progress in everything. If you set yourself a target saying, I want 100% of the children to learn, like I said, just like evaluation, there are plateaus. Some children will take a very long time. Some children don't seem to be learning in that lesson. Sometimes language development, like Arabic in my school, it might take them 3 months before I see them saying a few words confidently. And suddenly when they learn to read, you'd see the magic. They're learning and the reading and the pace is very fast. So you can't expect, now all of you sitting here, I can't get into your heads, okay? But I am assuming that at least 50% of this class would take away at least one idea and use it in their schools. Anything that I have said, anything that appeals to you, if you practice it, I would consider 90 minutes spent with you was useful for at least, can I say, somebody might be sitting and saying, what is she talking all this rubbish, I know all of it. Is this why we are attending this session? I don't want to hear another word, okay? There will be people like that in your classes. Maybe I'm not challenging the brighter ones more. Okay? So in your class, you can't expect progress to be uniform and it can't be for everybody. But inspectors are not looking at 100%. If 50% of your children progress in that lesson, that's half your class, then they will say that lesson is a good lesson. Okay, would anybody like to share anything else? Any other key areas? Okay, next activity I'm going to give you, I'll tell you what it is. I'm going to ask you to build a SMART goal board. What is a SMART goal board? It's a board on which you're going to write specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound, one goal. And then you're going to create a timeline. You're going to action that one goal. Now let us say I will improve reading in kindergarten for from this level to this level, whatever is my goal. And then how am I going to action that? Who's going to do it? By when? Okay? The reason I'm giving you this task is, to my mind, none of us really sit down every day with that action plan of ours. Ideal situation, we should be. But if you mind map that action plan onto a board, and you have a visual reminder of it as you walk around your corridors, and you have tags saying, achieved, on the way, roadblock, not done, you're telling yourself and others that you have a plan for your department, you have a plan for your section that ties in with the school's action plan. Okay, so you've got all kinds of stuff in here. It says November, it can help you build a timeline. There are post-its, there are little things for your action, whatever you want to stick. There's a glue stick, there are marker pens. You get a board like this which is SMART. So what I want you to say is, put down just one specific goal. Tell me how you're going to measure it. Tell me how it's going to be achievable. Tell me how it is relevant to the learning, and time bound. Is it going to be done in a month? Is it 1 year? Is it 20 days that you hope to achieve? And then I would put November, and I put something underneath saying, this is what I'm going to do in November to help me attain this goal. When you have this, it's perhaps one of the most powerful tools for your teachers and your stakeholders as they walk the corridor saying, PE department has a SMART goal board. Arabic department has a SMART goal board. And when I have achieved something, I might pick up a star and I put it against it and say, well, this particular thing is achieved, or something else is not achieved, it's on the way. So I might say, that goal is on the way. Okay? When you've completed, you put it. And anyone, your principal walking down says, wow, this is the Arabic department's action plan. It ties into the school action plan like a mind map. Immediately I can see what you achieved, what you're working on, how you're going to achieve it in a snapshot. Nobody has time to read pages of documents. Even if you give it to your supervisors, even if you give it to your teachers, they don't have time to read all of that. But if you ask them to build a board, and I'm going to ask you to take your boards home, if you want. So I'm giving you half an hour to create. I'm going to look at if your goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So you've got a nice board, okay? And on this board, you're going to create a smart goal board. When you go back to your schools, take a bulletin board. Use one large bulletin board per department to create a smart goal board. So on this, you might write, put this aside, and then I write the goal, and then how I'm going to action it. You can use Post-its, you can use something like this saying, I'm going to action it this way, okay? You have a timeline as well. Right, here goes. Now this is a collaborative work, so you have to agree on one goal.
It should be introduce 21st century learning.
We just sum up.
Then here, measurable. How are we going to measure that?
I hope you enjoyed working on it.
Surveys,
And
through teacher surveys for confidence, for
you will all have a smart goal board.
I don't know. Then that would be through teachers' lesson plans, through observations, and then achievable would be
self-evaluation
75%
and action are
at the end.
managed together.
75% of
Self-evaluation without action is of no use.
So like
So
here,
is
it would be
to
here.
present the action
So like
to the
here,
whole
if we
wide
did
world.
surveys to find out
Thank you for having
the
me.
confidence
Thank
of our
you for
teachers.
invitation. I wish I had more time to share with you. We send you all the documents. If you haven't registered, register with Bhavna's help. You get everything I have done, soft copy. You're asked to fill in an evaluation form. Please
this is
fill
where
it
I
out.
didn't understand it, but now I
And for
do.
those
So
of
like
you
here
who
for
want
achievement, so
to,
like here, for a measurable, this is where we'd have to have like surveys of teacher confidence in 21st century learning skills. So then achievement, we would say to increase 75% of teachers' knowledge to whatever.
And everything.
You want to call me, that's my number.
Yeah. You have to use this way in
And if you want to visit, we are
Right, and no, and we've been doing that, but this is like, when I was doing this with the smart thing, I didn't understand this SNART. So when we were filling this out, that's why I didn't understand it, but now I do.
I hope this was
Because
helpful.
it's like,
You completed
it's
your